Today's review is sponsored by Criss Cross, the new cross protection cream, for vampires that are tired of getting burned by those pesky holy items.
Watch it, Alan, I'm shooting.
The Fly. When it comes to horror remakes, the movies that get the most praise are The Blob, The Thing, the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and The Fly. And before anybody says The Thing and The Fly aren't really remakes, they're closer adaptations to books or novellas. In my definition, they're remakes. There was a movie that came out that was also influenced by said book, and then there were movies that were made afterwards to either cash in on the success of the originals, or because the director was a big fan of the originals, like John Carpenter with The Thing. I do prefer original material to just constant sequels and remakes, but I think we do a disservice by not saying a good remake is a remake. I think we need to admit if a remake is good, because that way people will see the right way to do a remake.
Okay. That's it. You're going to like it.
I don't want to! I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid!
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
David Cronenberg's The Fly is a fantastic remake and a great addition to the body horror genre, but I actually do love the 1958 version.
I know it's worked!
I do like the remake more than the original, but the original still deserves a lot more love. It tends to get brushed aside as just a goofy 1950s monster movie, but it's more complex than that. There are ideas from the original that the remake uses, and we'll get into that in a minute. The ideas taken from the original are why the remake is so good. We follow Seth Brundle, an awkward scientist played by Jeff Goldblum. I think this is his best performance.
What am I working on? I'm working on something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
He's taken a liking to a reporter played by Geena Davis named Veronica, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one. They call her Ronnie in the movie. And I think this is her best performance.
Somehow I get the feeling you don't get out much.
You can tell that?
Yeah.
Seth Brundle is on the verge of creating teleportation. He's invented 2 pods, and he's able to disintegrate an object in one pod, transfer it over, and then reintegrate it into another pod. The problem is, he hasn't figured out how to teleport living organisms yet. He makes a deal with Ronnie to follow his research until he cracks the code of human teleportation. He wants her to follow his research and eventually write a book about these experiments. This working relationship soon develops into a romantic relationship, and the two fall in love. When the machines are finally ready to teleport living creatures, Seth tests it on himself, unaware that an ordinary housefly has made its way into the pod with him. There wasn't supposed to be 2 organisms in the pod, so the computer decided to splice the 2 together. And slowly, Seth begins to merge genetically with the fly.
Hey, what's this?
It's an attempt to distract me, that's what it is.
No, really, what is this?
What we get is one of the grossest, gooeyest, tragic love stories ever put on film. I'm gonna give a spoiler alert here. There are certain things I want to talk about in this video, but I can't do that without spoiling the movie, so that's a spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you have not seen The Fly, please go watch it before continuing with this video. I can wait.
Ow, dick!
Sorry. All set? Okay, here we go.
The world will want to know what you're thinking.
Fuck is what I'm thinking.
Good. The world will want to know that.
I usually don't like talking about popular movies or highly regarded movies unless I can add something new to the conversation. I don't know if I'm going to be able to with this movie, but I'm going to give it a shot. So many people have already talked about The Fly. One of my favorite YouTubers, Ryan Hollinger, already did a video essay about The Fly on his channel. He did that a couple of years ago. It's a fantastic video essay. I highly recommend checking it out. The video he made about The Fly goes into detail on this movie better than I ever could. Ryan Hollinger does not need me to promote his material. He already has a really good following. But I like the guy, so there you go. So, yes, The Fly is a love story. Ronnie falls in love with Seth before he turns into this human fly monstrosity.
You're very cute. You know that?
Am I?
David Cronenberg has stated that The Fly is an allegory for terminal illness, like cancer or AIDS. If you were to take the Fly stuff out of this movie, you would have a tragic love story. Woman falls in love with man, man comes down with some terminal disease, then the movie follows their struggle through this situation. It just so happens that this particular disease is turning Seth into a fly.
I'm scared. Help me. Please.
That's why body horror is so effective. I'd argue it's one of the most effective subgenres in horror. It's all about the horrors of the body. We don't want anything happening to our bodies, whether that be an illness, an injury, or something taking control of our bodies. We can run away from Jason, we can run away from Michael, but we can't run away from our bodies when things start to go wrong. The practical effects in The Fly are some of the best I've ever seen. The prosthetics used on Jeff Goldblum are astounding. It looks like what would happen if someone started to transform into a fly. I love how it's not an instantaneous transformation. It starts out with little details. Strange hairs growing out of his back, weird blemishes appearing on his face, then things start to fall off.
My ear. No.
It's so gross, but in the best way. And it's that slow transformation that creates the suspense. The tension accumulates around this idea. Seth is going to turn into a fly. It leaves the audience wondering, how bad is he gonna get? What's he gonna look like this time? Is he gonna look worse this time? Is he gonna look even worse this time? All of this accumulates until he finally transforms into the fly-esque monster. This is one of the greatest transformations. I'd argue that it rivals American Werewolf in London. As great as the effects are, we have to give it to Jeff Goldblum for being able to act through these prosthetics. It's his little mannerisms that sell this idea. The way his eyes move around, that twitch he does every now and again.
I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it.
Here's a fun fact that I get a kick out of. One of the producers for The Fly was none other than comedy director Mel Brooks. Uncredited. That's right, the guy who directed Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein gave us one of the grossest horror movies ever made. People found out about this when it came out, so they went into the theater thinking it was going to be something funny. Fucking hilarious, ain't it? We also need to give credit to Geena Davis. She does such a good job at playing a person, seeing someone they love go through such a horrible ordeal. She captures the heartbreak, hating to see Seth suffer like this, but still wanting to see him because she doesn't know if this is the last time she's going to see him.
I wanted to see you before.
She goes through all these emotions, sadness, fear, confusion, and she does them all great. Then she goes through terrified uncertainty when she finds out that she's pregnant with Seth's baby.
I want it out of my body now. You should have seen him. There could be anything in here. In me, in my body.
I don't know if I can arrange it now, right now, tonight.
That's what makes The Fly, both the original and the remake, such standout monster movies. They don't follow the typical monster movie formula. The main characters don't just turn into monsters and then go on a rampage killing people. In the original, the scientist's name is Andre Delambre. His head and arm transfer with that of a fly when he goes through the teleporter. In the remake, Seth Brundle slowly mutates into the Fly. In both movies, the characters are still themselves. Each person is still who they are, but they're slowly being taken over by the Fly brain.
Turned into what?
What do you think, a fly? Am I becoming a 185-pound fly?
What makes for a good remake is doing something different, but understanding why the original works. The 1986 Fly takes the elements that worked from the 1958 Fly. We're not focusing on this hideous monster that the character becomes. We're focusing on the character becoming the monster. Here's Seth Brundle, we like Seth Brundle, and now we're gonna turn him into a monster.
I want a disc. Give me preliminary integration. I want a disc. Give me preliminary integration.
My favorite scene in the movie is when Ronnie goes to visit Seth when he's coming towards the end of his transformation. In this scene, he starts talking about insect politics. Now, this sounds like something that should be very goofy, but it makes the movie all the more tragic.
Insects don't have politics. They're very brutal. No compassion. No compromise.
It's when Seth realizes that he's losing himself to the Fly brain. He's giving into insect instinct, and it's not gonna end well.
I'll hurt you this day.
It's heartbreaking. Now, I had seen The Fly many times. I've loved this movie ever since I watched it when I was a kid. But I had never considered it my favorite David Cronenberg movie. I don't know if I would even have put it in my top 50 favorite horror movies. It had been a few years since I last watched it, and on this particular rewatch, I found myself being drawn to this movie more. And that's because, since the last time I watched it, I had gone through new life experiences that have allowed me to identify with this movie so much more.
I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die.
I found myself identifying with Geena Davis's character. The Fly is an analogy for terminal illness, both for people who are going through it and for the friends and family who have to deal with it as well. In the past 3 years, I've seen friends have to put family members in hospice care. A member of my family had passed away, not from illness, but old age. I still had to watch this person deteriorate, though. That's why The Fly connected more with me now. Seeing Seth lose himself to the Fly, and seeing Ronnie have to watch it happen, it's similar to what so many people have to go through when they're dealing with a dying loved one. We see Seth go through denial of his condition and anger. which is something that so many people go through when they find out that they're dying.
You've got to get some help. I think you must be sick.
You're jealous!
I've become free. I've been released, and you can't stand it. You'll do anything to bring me down.
Seeing Ronnie stricken with grief as she watches Seth lose himself to the fly reminded me of when I had to go say goodbye to someone who was dying. And, in a way, this movie was comforting for me. It helped me process things a little more, as weird as that may seem. Those experiences made me love this movie so much more, and it's another example of how, as we get older, our tastes change. As we experience new things, we find ourselves drawn to certain movies.
Up here.
Oh,
Gotten pretty good at it, haven't I? Yeah, it's almost second nature.
And that's why I decided to talk about The Fly, because on this rewatch, it affected me in such a profound way. As gross, gooey, and disturbing as this piece of body horror can be, I think it's a movie that everyone should watch. And if you're someone who has lost a loved one, I think you'll connect with this movie even more. And in a weird way, I think you'll find some comfort in this movie. But enough of this emotional, sentimental bullshit. You people have come here for gore and sleaze. So let's get to the Grindhouse rankings. We've got a body count of 1 in this movie. Just 1. Seth Brundle is the only one to die in this flick. He turns into a fly monster and gets his head blown off. It reaches the body horror requirements with horrifying transformations and a fair amount of goo. There's a little nudity here with some side boob and Jeff Goldblum's ass, and a dick in a jar. Yeah, that counts. The practical effects are amazing, some of the best. There's a reason this won an Oscar for Best Makeup. Seth Brundle is a great character. It's the fact that we like him that makes the body horror so hard-hitting, and Jeff Goldblum's acting brings the fly creature to life. Geena Davis is also great. I don't think this movie would have been as effective without her performance. The acting is so good and the story is so interesting that we don't realize that Seth doesn't really start to transform until the last 30 minutes of the movie. Sure, we get some little things here and there, but he doesn't start some hardcore transformation until the last 30 minutes. The analogy for terminal illness is what really brings this movie home. I think many people can identify with this flick. I'm giving The Fly a 6 out of 5. This is a movie that I've only grown to love more over the years. A high recommendation for everyone. Just be ready for the goo. As always, I want to thank you all for continuing to watch and support my channel. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know a movie that has connected with you on a deeper level as you got older. This is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die.